Hello again and welcome to another Warlord Wednesdays. This is where we take a look at some tactics for the game Bolt Action. And today, guys, we are going to be continuing some classic tactics videos. We are going to be taking a look at support teams. Now, we're going to be giving a bit of a general overview of the support teams, which ones that I think are worth it and which ones I think probably, aren't worth it and you can avoid. Now, let's just dive straight into this. I'm going to try and keep this as a nice quick tips tactical video. So what do I mean by team weapons? Well, it's pretty much anything that has the team special rule that isn't something like an officer. So we'll be covering things like medium machine guns, and you've got mortars, and you've got anti-tank rifle teams, and you've got Panzerschrecks and stuff like that. All that kind of stuff. We're talking about team weapons. This video follows on quite nicely from my transport video, because in my transport video I did touch about how there are like little 2-man teams and there are 3-man teams and all this kind of stuff. So this is what we're going to be, and how transports work well with them. So these two videos will be quite closely linked together. So the reason why team weapons are really important and something that you want to consider when you're getting your bolt action army and getting into bolt action is because some of them are really good and some of them are okay. None of them are flat out outright bad, and some of them are very cool, but it is important to know when you're getting into the game which ones you can expect to get bang for buck out of and which ones are just okay. So one of the ones I'm going to start with straight away is the medium machine gun team. Now, medium machine guns are really common in bolt action. Pretty much every vehicle will be, having one unless it's got a light machine gun. But most vehicles have got a medium machine gun at least. And you can also get them in pretty much every single starter set. I don't know of a single starter set that Warlord does that doesn't include a medium machine gun team. And the weird thing is that medium machine, not weird, but I suppose the interesting thing is that I personally find, and when I spoke to a lot of other bolt action players, the medium machine gun is like one of the coolest weapons for every army. You've got the Vickers, it just looks cool. The MG42, of course. You've got the Japanese machine gun, the Woodpecker, the classic, the 50 cal, and for the Americans, and the 30 cal, and all that kind of stuff. So medium machine guns tend to be like really, really cool. But they unfortunately are not very good. And they're okay. They're okay, but they are sniper fodder, straight and simple. Because the thing about the team weapon rule is, one of the things is that if you take exceptional damage, the whole team dies. And you know what snipers do? Snipers always do exceptional damage. We won't get too much into what exceptional damage is right now. It's just, it basically means you get to pick who dies. And if a team weapon has a flaw, has an Achilles heel, which is if it takes exceptional damage, which is a rule in bolt action, then the whole team just dies. It represents you've blown up the ammo or something like that, or you've damaged the weapon itself. The point is that if you do exceptional damage to a team weapon, it dies. And medium machine guns tend to get picked off really easily because they have to have direct fire, and they've only got like a 36 range, which is like the same as a sniper. And, whilst the medium machine gun can have a go at trying to pick the sniper off, most time you'll have a sniper who's going to be in, like, cover, at least. Probably going to be over half range. It's going to be a small target. Easy. At best you're hitting on 6s. More than likely you'll be hitting on 6s followed by 6 when shooting a sniper. But the sniper shooting you back is hitting on a 3. Just hits on a 3. Wounds on a 4 more than likely if you're looking at regular. And then that machine gun just goes away. I've not played a game where snipers haven't just been picking off medium machine guns, or even I mean, you can put the, and if your opponent does put like the sniper down and whatnot, and you're able to not do he doesn't go for your medium machine gun, then maybe it can do something, but it's tricky. You either have to put your machine gun in a way out the far away place. Look, I'm not going to get into it. Medium machine guns, they're just sniper fodder. And the problem is that they're a 3-man team as well, which means they're not a small team, which means they don't get an inbuilt -1 to hit. And so they don't really have the great, great rate of fire. It's 5 shots. And that's it. So unfortunately, I'm not a big, I love the models, but I'm not a big fan of medium machine guns. And when I've looked online and I've spoken to fellow bolt action players, that tends to be kind of the thing that a lot of people realise, which is medium machine guns are cool, but they're not super cost effective. They're just sniper fodder. Now, the heavy machine gun is slightly different, and we will touch on this. It does obviously suffer from the same issues as a medium machine gun, but the heavy machine gun is slightly different because it has a penetration rate. It's got AP +1. Now that makes it very interesting as just a soft anti-tank. You know, most armoured cars are only armour like 7, so a heavy machine gun can pierce armoured cars, and also it makes them great for picking off veterans. So whilst the medium machine gun is sniper fodder, and the heavy machine gun suffers the same risk, it does have a little bit more punch, and I have seen heavy machine guns be used quite effectively. One of the things that you realise when you face the Americans for long enough is they seem to be able to strap a heavy machine gun to every vehicle that they've got, and so heavy machine guns and heavy machine gun teams aren't that expensive; they're not too bad. Yeah, heavy machine guns I think are interesting. They tend, and I've definitely, when being on the receiving end of them, I felt the effect of that penetration +1. So definitely, but again, they're still a bit sniper fodder. So machine guns are great in bolt action, but I tend to find they're better mounted on vehicles. Now, then if we take a look at things like mortars. Now mortars they come in 3 flavours. You've got your light mortar, your medium mortar, and your heavy mortar. Now, hands on heart, hold my hands up I should say, I've not had any experience against or with the heavy mortar yet. Okay, so I'm going to have a bit of a light touch on that one. But I have faced off against light mortars numerous times, and I've used my medium mortar in every single game of bolt action I've ever played. I really like light mortars. They're dirt cheap, and they can just run around, and you don't really care if you move and shoot with them because they're always hitting on 6s. And I find them quite effective at actually supporting an attack. You've just got a little light mortars running up alongside, plumping little rounds out of it. It's quite effective. I quite like the light mortar. And it's dirt cheap. You're looking for a lot of factories, look at like 20, 30 points for a light mortar. It's not a lot at all. Medium mortar, the advantage also is that it tends to be a 2-man team using a light mortar, which means it has an inbuilt -1, which is great. And like I said, it's not a huge points investment. If it dies, you don't care. And yeah, so it's pretty effective. Now, you've then got the medium mortar, which I like. In fact, I've never run a game without one. Because medium mortars are still pretty cheap. In fact, they're about the same points cost as a medium machine gun, but they get a spotter. Now, you have to pay 10 points for your spotter, but the spotter essentially allows you to fire it indirect. I won't get into the rules for it, but the reason why that's so important is it reduces the risk of being sniped. So you don't really care if your light mortar gets sniped because it's so cheap. If it dies, it dies, whatever. It's always a bit of a waste for the sniper to shoot it. And your medium mortar is unlikely to be targeted because you'll be using the spotter instead. So that's why I like mortars, and that's why in terms of like team weapons, I tend to feel like mortars are superior to machine guns overall. I tend to find that you can get machine guns elsewhere, on your vehicles. That's where they belong, and mortars are great as infantry team weapons. Which is interesting because every starter set ever comes with a medium machine gun, and it also comes with a mortar, so fair play. Now, they're kind of the main big team weapons that I want to talk about, the medium machine guns and the mortar teams. After that, you have a couple of other small teams. One of those is the sniper, and as I've kind of indirectly spoken about in this video, snipers are really effective, but they're a bit of an interesting one, snipers, because you tend to either take them as a lone sniper or as a sniper team. First bit of advice I can give you is you always want to take your sniper as veteran. And the reason you always want to take your sniper as veteran is because if he ever gets into a sniping duel with another sniper, you're going to want him to have the best possible chance of winning that sniper duel. The best way you can do that is by having him only get wounded on a 5+, rather than if it's on a 4. You know, if you've got a veteran sniper going up against a regular sniper, then that veteran sniper is much more likely to win that sniper duel. You know, the gentleman's game, shall we say. Now, that is, you know, so snipers are great. That's the first thing I want to mention before we get to the actual rules. Now, snipers are really interesting. They ignore auto-hit modifiers, so they always hit on a 3+, which is if they're using the sniper scope. You can use the sniper rifle as a normal rifle if you want, but if you use you're going to want to use the sniper scope 9 times out of 10. Now, they always hit a 3+, but they don't get any modifiers to wound. So, you know, if you're shooting a veteran unit, you still got to wound them on a 5+. But they always do, as I said, they always do exceptional damage, which allows you to pick what you kill. Against other team weapons, that means you will wipe the team out, because, as I mentioned, exceptional damage always wipes the team out. Against other units, like infantry units, it means you can pick out that light machine gun. You can pick out that sergeant. You can pick out that BAR, that SMG, that assault rifle, that flamethrower. You can pick it out with your sniper. You always get to pick, which is interesting. Now, when you're using your sniper, it's important to bear in mind which faction you're facing. So if you're facing someone like Germans, you typically want to take out their LMGs and their assault rifles, and you kind of want to take out their sergeants last. And the reason for that is Germans have a rule where if you kill the sergeant on a 2+, someone else just takes over, and they get the sergeant's equipment and all that. The sergeant just doesn't die, essentially. So when you're sniping Germans, it's typically you want to go for those machine guns that they love so much. But when you're facing armies like Americans and Brits and stuff, I would say you want to pick out the sergeants first, because then the enemy, if you pick out a sergeant, the enemy always has a -1 to pass order tests. So that means like a pin and a dead sergeant is actually -2 for the enemy to activate that unit, and a sniper can do all that in one go. You know, if they get the hit, they get the pin. If they get the kill, they put the sergeant out. Suddenly that unit's at -2. If that's regular, it's only got a 50-50 chance of passing its order test next time. It's not great. If you're facing Japanese, I'd probably say pick out the SMGs first. Typically, Japanese players will take a couple of SMGs in a squad, and you want to be picking out the sergeant with the SMG and the regular dudes with SMGs. And the reason for that is, you want to pick it, because the reason for that is that Japanese can banzai, where they can, if they want to, they can just choose to pass a charge or a run move. So taking out the sergeant isn't necessarily a big deal, because the Japanese player will just banzai then. You know, doesn't really impact him as much as taking out a sergeant of like an allied unit. So that's snipers. The weird thing is I often don't take snipers. I just take stuff to counter snipers. So typically I find that armoured cars are really effective at dealing with snipers. I have a Japanese, I think it's like the Type 1928 Vickers Crosley import car. It's a pre-war car, interwar car I should say. And I love using that thing for killing snipers, because it's got 2 medium machine guns. So it just drives, so it's got the rate of fire to always be getting pins, and always be getting, it might take 2 or 3 turns, but that little armoured car it'll get that sniper, it'll do it. So that's why I like using armoured cars with lots of machine guns for dealing with snipers. The other thing I like for using against snipers is like light howitzers, because howitzers or medium howitzers as well, because howitzers have the artillery keyword, and artillery, or is it howitzer keyword? You can't snipe out whole artillery carriages you can't snipe out a flak 88 with a sniper. Snipers can only do like exceptional mega damage to and wipe out big team weapons. They don't wipe out big artillery weapons. So light howitzers, medium howitzers, anything like that, they're great for dealing with snipers as well, because you can just be launching HE into them. And or just charging them. Typically it's a 2-man team. If you manage to, even if you've only got 6 or 7 dudes, if you get a charge on them, you'll typically beat them in combat. So that's how I recommend it. As Japanese, I tend to really just bum rush a sniper. I'll just be like, right, yeah, 10 dudes, just rush that sniper. Now the last thing I want to talk about is anti-tank. Now anti-tank tends to fall into 2 categories. You get anti-tank rifles, and you get like anti-tank launchers. And by launchers, I mean like bazookas or Panzerschrecks. Now, it's funny. I'm kind of on the fence with both of these choices. Anti-tank rifles tend to be really cheap. Like a veteran one will be like 29 or 39 points. It's not a lot. It's a cheap dice in the bag. It's soft anti-tank, and you'll find that it's one shot. It's got like a 36 range. It's only arm penetration +2, so over half range. That's like pen +1. So they're good for dealing with like enemy armoured cars and stuff, which is okay. They're good for dealing with enemy armoured cars and transport stuff. But I tend to find that anti-tank rifles will get a kill a game. And that might be like, that's not meaning a vehicle kill. That means like, they'll kill an infantryman. They're weirdly good at killing veterans, because you just +2 to pen. I often use my Japanese anti-tank rifle to snipe officers, because if you hit them, you just brain them a lot of the time. The other thing they're good at doing is if you've got, let's say you've fired your like medium anti-tank gun at an enemy tank, and you've hit them but you didn't penetrate them, so you've just done a pin essentially. What's also good is that if you shoot your anti-tank rifle at them, because there's a chance, it's not guaranteed because of the rules, but there's a chance you'll get another pin on them, and that way, even if the enemy passes their order test, they're going to have a pin on them, and that means they're at a -1 to hit with that vehicle. So that's what I tend to find anti-tank rifles quite good for. On their own though, or I think Soviets can take like 2 or 3 of them in a slot, and that's when I think they become effective. That you just want to use them to be putting pins on vehicles, and to be making sure that every vehicle that you're targeting basically always has like 2 pins on them. That's what you want to be using them for. But basically they are a cheap dice in the bag. Now the other thing, so I'm kind of like that. I do not think they're essential. I don't think they're bad. I think they have a role. I just don't think they're essential. I think they're good, but just don't expect how to phrase this. I think they are good. They are cheap, but do not expect them to fulfill your entire anti-tank needs. Okay. On the other hand, anti-tank launchers like Shreks and bazookas and Piats, they do have the potential to do loads of damage. You're looking at like pen +5, pen +6, shape charge on some of these things. Like, they have the potential to do real damage, but they're expensive. You're looking at like 60 points, like double the price at least of an anti-tank rifle. And it's a 2-man team. Both of these are 2-man teams, I should say. And so they are good, but they're expensive, and especially if you're using them like a Piat, you're going to need a transport for them, so even like a little Jeep. So that starts adding on to the price even more. I think both of them, in their own sort of way, are funnily enough equally useful. The anti-tank rifle is cheap, a little bit of light anti-tank, and it's kind of, you're basically taking it for an extra dice in the bag and put a few pins on around the thing. That's one way of looking at it. I think bazooka teams and the like are psychologically a big deal. You've got a bazooka team in a Jeep, and your opponent has to take that into account, because it could fly up the board, jump out, and blow up a tank. It could do that. So I feel like they're definitely a psychological impact, but especially Piat teams, which have got like a really short range of like 12 inches, I think it is. I'm not a big fan of the Piat team. I've rarely seen one work. Bazookas and Panzerschrecks, I think, are a lot more effective. Now, the last thing to mention is flamethrower teams. And flamethrowers are cool. They are cool. They always hit a 3. They always cause morale checks. They're horrible. They're just horrible. Flamethrowers are just horrible things to face. They do like D6 pins. They've got fantastic penetration, all this stuff, but they're very short ranged. And again, they're quite expensive, like 60 points for flamethrower team. 50, 60 points. Where I think you actually want to be putting flamethrowers, I think flamethrowers are fantastic. I think where you want to be putting your flamethrowers is in like your engineer squads, your pioneer squads. That's where I think they're strongest. But I do think flamethrowers are really, really good. One of the better choices here. So that's kind of my initial summary of all of the different teams. If I was to go through these and rate them sort of best to worst, I'd put medium machine guns at the bottom. You know, heavy machine guns kind of above that. And then I'd put sort of, in terms of the 3-man teams, I should say, and then, you know, medium mortars, heavy mortars, you know, top end of the 3-man teams. And then all of the 2-man teams are kind of nice to have, but not essential. But at the top end, you've got your sniper and your flamethrower. In the middle, you've got your anti-tank rifle and your Panzerschreck teams. And at the bottom end, you've got your light mortar. In fact, I'd even put the anti-tank rifle maybe at the bottom end. And that's not, and I want to be clear, none of those are bad. When I'm putting them in terms of order, I'm not saying that's not order of goodness, that's order of priority. So you should always be taking a medium mortar in your list, but you probably don't need a light mortar. If you're going to take a mortar, take a medium mortar. You know, if you're not going to take, you know, if you weren't that bothered about taking mortar and you end up with some spare points at the end, take a light mortar, inexperienced light mortar, something crazy, you know. Likewise, if you're looking for anti-tank in your list, you probably want to be, you know, you're not going to be putting it on your actual tanks. Then you probably want to be thinking, you know, something like a Panzerschreck team. But again, if you've got a few points left over at the end, look at the anti-tank rifle. That's how I'd see it. The only ones out of all the team weapons, the only ones that I think are outright like you just don't even need to consider them, if you know, are like those medium machine guns. You know, I'm looking at ways to. I don't take them with my Japanese ever anymore, and the only reason I keep taking them with my Germans is because I haven't got something to replace it yet. That's it. That's the best way of looking at it. But as I hope you've seen with all of these things in bot action and in this video, you know, specifically, all of these things have uses. You can pretty much make all of them work, and even if you take a medium machine gun, it's not that you've taken a bad choice, you've just taken a less efficient choice. Anyway, guys, we'll leave that video there. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. You know, if you agree, disagree, what are your favourite team weapons, what are your least favourite team weapons? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And if you are a heavy mortar enthusiast, please share your lessons, because I haven't used one yet or faced one yet, so I'd love to learn a bit more about them. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.